belt and then runs over and hits you with the belt. And I thought that was so smart of him. Bell hasn't rang. Let me get this edge on him. Sean's got to call this match down the middle.
Right.
There's so many different things here, but he knew he had to get an edge on you. He knew that he had to do something to get a leg up.
The Undertaker talks about the chemistry that him and Bret the Hitman Hart shared in the ring. Let's see what Taker has to say.
Yeah, Bret was really, really creative as far as putting matches together, and we had this. Normally, in that situation, Bret would have led that match. He was tenured more so than me.
Yeah.
But we really had a really good chemistry and a camaraderie that it was always kind of like, okay, for me, it's like, what can I do for you? Within the confines of what I do, what can I do for you that's going to showcase your talents and your deal? And he was the same, he was the same thing with me. He was like, okay, you're Frankenstein. How does mortal Bret Hart drop Frankenstein kind of deal? And so we always worked hard for each other.
Yeah.
And then by the time, again, once we got to that SummerSlam, it was like we had it dialed in really well.
And I loved at the very beginning of that match talking about this mortal figure, which is Bret Hart, against this Frankenstein, this dead man that's been built in a lab or whatever, He did something that I think he knew that he was going to have to get an edge on you some way, somehow.
Right.
And he does it right off the bat. It is the bell hasn't even rang, and Shawn Michaels is showing him, the belt, and Bret's telling him, I just want to touch it.
Right.
And he grabs the belt and then runs over and hits you with the belt. And I thought that was so smart of him. Bell hasn't rang. Let me get this edge on him. Sean's got to call this match down the middle.
Right.
There's so many different things here, but he knew he had to get an edge on you. He knew that he had to do something to get a leg up. I thought what was funny, and I'd like to hear from you on this, was you looked like your jacket wrapped you up pretty good there at the beginning. You were trying to get out of your coat.
Oh, that's when he hit me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're trying to get out of your coat, and I'm watching this thinking to myself, I wonder if he was really like wrapped up in this jacket. He was trying to get out of his coat, or was it?
Did not. It's been a while since I watched that. Did he not try and pull it up over my head like a hockey jersey? Is that he did that once.
He hits it, and he's got the back of it, but you run down the ropes and you pull, the jacket comes off of you at that point, right?
Okay.
But it looked like you got wrapped up in the jacket.
I probably
pretty good.
did.
But I just think that was just a really smart move on his part to do something like that at the very beginning of the match.
Yeah,
because he knows, I'm behind the eight ball here, wrestling this guy. And that, I think, just also shows who Bret Hart, the professional wrestler,
right,
what is going through his mind.
Yeah. Again, great storytelling.
Yeah.
What else would you do? Like, if I had to fight somebody, if somebody was that much bigger than me, and then has on top of that this character that you can't hurt, I'd crack him too.
Yeah. Even
just
being
made
the
sense.
technical, perfect wrestler that he was, he knows I've got to do something that is, might be a little dirty to be able to win this match.
I think he was a heel at that point. That's one of the, I guess that's that same point where he was a heel in the, I think he was a heel in the States and then babyface everywhere else.
Because he came out, he's carrying the Canadian flag, and everybody's booing him and everything else too. But early on, when you first started wrestling, Bret, for you, what was that like leading up to those matches? What were the conversations like with Bret? Because at the time, especially in '92, you're still, you've got some time under your belt, but it's not like you don't have 10, 15 years under your belt,
right?
So what were the conversations like with Bret leading into those matches early on when y'all first started working together?
It really, back then, it was just kind of the way it was done. There wasn't a lot of conversation as far as putting the match together. It was kind of like, I do this thing, I do this thing, and then we just kind of work by feel and threw stuff on the wall to see what stuck in the house shows.
Yeah.
Madison Square Garden was never really considered a house show. I mean, even if it wasn't a TV event, Madison Square Garden was
Still the Garden.
It was still the Garden.
Yeah.
So you always brought it at the Garden, but it was just like, okay, there were a few things thrown out, but nothing like, okay, we'll do this, 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 we'll do this. Let's get in the ring, see what our chemistry's like. Let's figure it out and see what works and what doesn't work and how I can do this and how I can do that. So it was a lot of trial and error, but it didn't take us a lot of time to figure out, okay, we've got good chemistry.
Yeah.
Pacing and everything else. Everything's good.
Bret, that surprised me because Bret seems like the type of guy that would want to be a little bit more organized. Not knowing the man at all, but I always just thought that he would be that.
No, because Bret Hart's an old school guy. A lot of the older school guys, they know how to call it in the ring. That's something that a lot of the newer school guys don't really know how to do. They don't know how to just go out there and just call it in the ring. They have to pre-plan everything, what spots, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Bret Hart is an older school wrestler. So no, he knows how to call it in the ring. He knows how to work. So that doesn't surprise me at all.
Guy.
Yeah, this is the way it was done though then. Nowadays, even while I was still working, I mean, everybody wanted everything, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. The old school days, there was a lot of times where the dressing rooms were on different sides of the arena. The promoter would either come in and give you thumbs up or thumbs down, and then you went and had your match. And it was all spur of the moment.
Wow.
And then once we started doing live TV, started doing Raw, that's when that kind of started to change because you had to hit cues.
Yeah.
And you had to have a spot set up to hit your commercials, right? And then when you come out of the commercial, so then it just kind of morphed into matches. Everything kind of got laid out. And it works out fine and it's okay. But when something doesn't work, you got to have the ability to audible.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times where if you don't know how to work like that, like if you don't know how to work off the cuff and the things that you're doing and you're hearing nothing but crickets, and you don't know how to audible, like a lot of times the guys can't get off the, we got to do this. We got to do this.
We said we were going to do this.
We're going to do this. Yeah. And if you're not able to go, okay, this is not what we planned. This is not working. Let's try this. And sometimes that means, there's nothing at all you're going to be able to do that's going to be able to get them. And you have to be like, oh, let's just go. Hit me with something, hit me with your best move, boom, and we're going to go home. Because that's what's needed. That's what they want. And that's what it was back then, it was out there and you work by feel. And that's what I love best. And that's why that's what I loved about house shows, especially. Because I would go and I would work, at the end, when I was still working full time at the end, it was, I would work and if we were in Europe somewhere and we'd be there for 2 weeks or whatever. And you'd pretty much have the same card every night. And, we'd hit the first night and that was good. And then you come back to the next night and the guys that you're working with comes over and says, hey, we doing the same thing? I'm like, nah, let's do something different.
Yeah.
And sometimes guys get like, oh, come on. We got it.
Let's
that was
just
really
mail
good.
it in tonight.
Well, no, it's not mailing
it in, but it's like we already know that this works.
We know this works. Let's do it. But I said that you don't grow that way.
Yeah,
you don't get better at your craft that way. Let's do something different. Make yourself think. And especially for some of the younger guys that were getting put into the mix, that's vital to do that for those guys. Just to give them that experience of, having to think on the fly and do different things. I don't think they didn't appreciate it then. I think later on, probably in their careers, they probably did and understood why I would change finishes and why I would change the match, and it was just like, this is how you learn your craft, and this is.
I love listening to this clip from The Undertaker. It gives you a bunch of good insight that I think any young wrestlers should listen to, especially from a veteran such as The Undertaker, a legend in the business. By the way, doesn't it look like the urn? It has like arms like growing out of it. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It just looks funny. It looks like a little spider urn. Anyway, got sidetracked. I loved listening to this clip, and it tells you about how it used to be done. And the thing is, I think it's important to learn how to call it in the ring. Like I didn't know that that's when it shifted to more planning the matches out was for TV, for the commercials and stuff. I didn't know that that's when that became more of a thing. I thought it was just the newer guys just being taught a certain way. I didn't know it started at some point. But I think it's important for these young guys to learn how to call it in the ring for things like audible, to know when, okay, this isn't working, the crowd's kind of dying out, we need to get them back into this. And just for many reasons, not even just for that, but just if someone gets hurt or if someone, sometimes things change, maybe some, things could change throughout the match, and it's important to be able to learn how to call these audibles. And, Bret Hart talked about working with The Undertaker, how he wanted to showcase Undertaker, more of Undertaker's wrestling ability, because The Undertaker wanted to grow as a performer. He didn't want to just be the Frankenstein, which I always get a kick out of whenever they call it the Frankenstein character. But he wanted to show that Undertaker wanted to show that he was more than the Frankenstein character, and Bret Hart wanted to help him do that. Bret Hart also told the time that Undertaker was the only person that actually kicked him out of the sharpshooter. So, it shows how much respect that these two had for one another. What did you guys think of this clip, though? Was it as interesting for you to listen to as it was for me to listen to? Sound off in the comment section below. Subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed content like this. And if you do enjoy content like this, I got a whole bunch more goodies for you on the screen to click on and enjoy.